Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakhakodash. Double honors and respect to the elders and to the apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing to all Akim that are preaching and teaching His word with 100% truth and sincerity. And unto the men, women, and children that are listening and learning, and unto the Bayath and Abadach and the house of David that is scattered abroad, I give you my utmost and sincere salutations. So what you see here on the screen is the Exodus, which goes into the Egyptian captivity, and Lord willing to be edifying. I have a few scripts I like to go into because this is going to be part of a captivity series I'm going to be doing. It's going to start with Egypt, and then it's going to be Assyria, then of course Babylon, the Medo-Persians, and Greece, Rome, and all the way till now. And like I said, Lord willing, that'd be edifying to the body, into the few sincere believers and listeners. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the story of Exodus, of course, is the departure from Egypt of the Israelites, whose narrative is the founding myth of the Israelites, whose narrative is spread over the 4 of the 5 books of the Pentateuch, which is the Greek pronunciation for the Torah, which is the books of the law, which is Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And the Torah, or the Pentateuch, usually consists of the 5 first books, which is Genesis all the way to Deuteronomy. It says the narrative of the Exodus describes a history of Egyptian bondage of the Israelites, followed by their exodus from Egypt through a passage of the Red Sea in pursuit of the Promised Land under the leadership of Moses. Okay, so the consensus of modern scholars is that the Pentateuch does not give an accurate account of the origins of the Israelites, who appear instead to have formed as an entity in the central highlands of Canaan in the late 2nd millennium BCE, around the time of the late Bronze Age collapse from the indigenous Canaanite culture. Most scholars believe that some elements in the story of Exodus might have some historical basis. Okay, let's see, where was I? But that any such basis has little resemblance to the story told in the Pentateuch. While the majority of modern scholars date that the composition of the Pentateuch to the period of the Achaemenid Empire, which is the Medo-Persian Empire, some of the elements of this narrative are older, since allusions to the story are made by the 8th century BCE prophets such as Amos and Hosea. Okay. Now we're going to go, and it says here the story of Exodus is central in Judaism. It is recounted daily in Jewish prayers and celebrated in festivals such as Passover. Early Christians saw the Exodus as a typological prefiguration of resurrection and salvation by Jesus. God, I hate that name. The Exodus is also recounted in the Quran as part of an extensive referencing of the life of Moses, a major prophet in Islam. The narrative has also resonated with groups in more recent centuries, such as the early American settlers fleeing religious persecution in Rome, and among African Americans striving for freedom and civil rights. Alright, now we're going to go into this part here. It says the story of enslavement of the Israelites, the plagues of Egypt, the departure of the Israelites from Egypt, the revelations at Mount Sinai, and the Israelite wanderings in the wilderness up to the borders of Canaan. Its message is that the Israelites were delivered from slavery by, as it says right here, it says Yahweh, but we know that's not the true name. The true name is Yahweh. Yahweh, their God. and therefore belong to him by covenant. The narrative, okay, it says in this Exodus is the story of the Exodus is told in the first half of Exodus, with the remainder recounting the first year in the wilderness and followed by a narrative of 39 more years in the books of Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The last 4 of the first 5 books of the Bible, also called the Torah or Pentateuch. And the first book of the Pentateuch is the Genesis. The Israelites had come to live in Egypt in the land of Goshen, which was part of northern Egypt, as you can see here. Okay, so it says they were in the land of Goshen during a famine under the protection of an Israelite, Joseph, okay, who had become a high official in the court of the Egyptian Pharaoh. Exodus begins with the death of Joseph and the ascension of a new Pharaoh who did not know Joseph in Exodus chapter 1 verse 8, which you're going to get here in a second. In fact, see, the Pharaoh becomes concerned by the number and the strength of the Israelites in Egypt and enslaves them, commanding them to build at 2 supply or store cities called Pithom or Ramses, pursuant to Exodus 1 and 11. The Pharaoh also orders the slaughter at birth of all male Hebrew children. One Hebrew child, however, is rescued and abandoned in a floating basket of the Nile. He is found and adopted by the Pharaoh's daughter, who names him Moses. Grown to a young man, Moses kills an Egyptian he sees beating a Hebrew slave and takes refuge in the land of Midian. And of course, Midian, those are Ishmaelites, so-called Arabians, where he marries Zipporah, a daughter of the Midianite priest Jethro. Okay, the old Pharaoh and a new one ascends to the throne. The old Pharaoh dies and a new one ascends to the throne. So, just going to go ahead and get a little bit of get some scripts here. Okay. This is going to be the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 15. Genesis chapter 15 is going to start at verse 13. Okay, Genesis 15 and 13, it says, "And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years." Okay? And that's talking about Egypt. "And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance." 15, "And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace." Okay. "Thou shalt be buried in a good old age." 16, "But in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full." Verse 17, "And it came to pass that when the sun went down, and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace, and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. And that same day the Lord Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed I have given this land from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. The Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims, okay, and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites." And these were all Hamitic tribes. And Jebus or Jebus, that was the former name of Jerusalem before it became known as Jerusalem. Okay, so let's see. Excuse me. Now let's see, now we're going to go to Exodus. Exodus chapter 1. Starting at verse 1, it says, Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came to Egypt, every man in his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Verse 5, And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. Okay, so going into the story of Joseph, this is going to be Genesis chapter 37. Because Joseph was the favorite. He was the favorite out of all of Jacob's sons. Excuse me. So this is Genesis chapter 37. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to start at the top, and then I'm going to skim down. Genesis 37, verse 1. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. Okay, so before, the land of Canaan, the Canaanites were, moved. It was the land of a Hamitic tribe, from the so-called Africans. Then it became ours, because we drove them out because of all their abominations. Verse 2, these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Verse 3. Now Israel, which is the surname of Jacob, now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. Verse 4, when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. Verse 5, and Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. 6, and he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. Verse 7, for behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams, and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream. And he says, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brother indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? 11, and his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. Okay. Now I'm going to go down. Go down to verse 15, and this is where Joseph's looking for his brothers. This is verse 15. It says, And a certain man found him, and behold,
He was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. 18. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And behold, and they said to one another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. So, Reuben, he was, he didn't want to kill his brother, so he figured to throw Joseph into a pit, and then when his other brothers weren't around or weren't looking, Reuben was going to get him out of there and bring him back to his father Jacob. Verse 23, and it came to pass when Joseph was coming to his brethren that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down and eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead, with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, and going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it? Excuse me. What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother. And our flesh and his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianite merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. And of course, Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brethren and said, The child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed the kid of the goat, and dipped the coat in the blood, and they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, This have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it, and said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. So basically, they lied to their father about, Joseph being killed by a wild beast or an animal. And so Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. Okay. Verse 35, and all the sons of all the daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, and he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. Verse 36, and the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's, and captain of the guard. All right. So that's how, Joseph, came into Egypt by his brothers selling him to Ishmaelite merchants who sold him as a slave to the Egyptians. This is going to be Genesis 41. Okay, but And we all know the story of how, how Joseph found favor because he interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh about 7 years of being prosperous and 7 years of of famine. You know, and of course, Jacob had to send his sons down to get some food, but eventually over time, Joseph couldn't hide him. He became a high official in Pharaoh's eyes. He's like his second in command. So he had to, so basically, kind of play with his brothers a little bit, kind of make them feel guilty about what they've done, until he couldn't, keep it in no more, and then he, revealed himself, and then, Jacob was relieved that his son, Joseph, was still alive after all these years. Now, going back to Exodus. Exodus chapter 1, going to verse 5, and it says, "And the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already." In verse 6, "And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation." Verse 7, "And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them." Verse 8, "Now therefore arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so got them up out of the land." Verse 11, "Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved, because the children of Israel and they were grieved because the children of Israel." Verse 13, "And the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor," which means that their bondage, their captivity, their enslavement was rather harsh. So I gotta turn that light on real quick. So, and verse 14, "And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. And their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, When ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill it. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared the Most High, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive." Alright. 18, "And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, Why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? Verse 19, "The midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them." So basically, when they get pregnant, they get birth rather quickly. They're very vigorous, lively, meaning they're very vigorous. Verse 20, "Therefore the Most High dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass that because the midwives feared the Most High, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall live. Ye shall save a life." And of course, this is the story where Moses comes in. Going back up here, it said,
God. Okay, so like I said here, um, about Moses, of course, growing to a young man who was adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, and he married a Midianite woman, an Arabian woman, who was the daughter of a priest named Jethro. Her name was Zipporah. Okay, according to that, let's see. Okay. Let's see. Let's get This is going to be the book of Exodus. It's going to be chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12. All right. Well, let's see here. Hold on. And like I said, when it comes to these plagues, because that's what the Most High sent on. He sent upon the Egyptians, because he wouldn't the Pharaoh wouldn't let his people go. You got the plague of frogs, which I'm gonna get right here before I get to Exodus, the 12th chapter. Okay, so Exodus chapter. This will be Exodus chapter 7, verse 8. And it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent." Verse 10, "And Moses and Aaron went into Pharaoh, and they did as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refuseth to let the people go." Okay. Now, going into the plagues, the bloody water, or the frogs. This is Exodus 8:1. "And the Lord spake unto Moses, going unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs, and the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into thy house with thy servants, and upon the people, and into thy ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frog shall come up both on thee, and upon thy people, and upon all thy servants. And the Lord spake unto Moses, and said to Aaron, Say unto Aaron, Stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams of the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt." Okay, so, and then there's another one, a plague of lice and flies. And let's see, now I'm gonna get Exodus 12. Slocky. And there was a plague of hail, which is that stuff that's like ice that falls from those clouds during like the cold. This is the cold season. And then there's locusts, and then that thick darkness. This is gonna be Exodus 12. Starting at verse, where was that? Verse 40, I think. Yeah, verse 40. And it says, "Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years. So for 430 years were we in captivity under the Egyptians. Okay? Now this is concerning the Passover. Because, this was that time of, to eat unleavened bread in haste because we were on the move. We were trying to get out of there. All right. Let's see. This is going to be. Let's see. Where is it? It's going to be the book of. Hebrews. It's going to be chapter 11. Excuse me for a second. Yeah, this is the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 23, and it says, "By faith Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, and they not afraid of the king's commandments." 24. By faith Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of the Most High than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Hamashiach greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for it endured as seeing him who is invisible. Through the faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. In fact, that's what I was going to get. Let's go back to Exodus, the 12th chapter, because there's something I wanted to read in there. This is what made Pharaoh, say, go ahead and get the hell out of here. Exodus chapter 12. Start from the beginning, verse 1. And it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months, and it shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your account for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it up from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood and strike it upon the 2 side posts and the upper doorpost of the houses wherein they shall eat it. And 9, and they shall eat the flesh in the night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head, with his legs, and with the pure partners thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on, your feet, and your staff in your hand. And ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover, for I will pass through the land in Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt. I will execute judgment, I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. And the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. Verse 14. And this day shall be unto you a memorial, for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast of the Lord to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day unto the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. 16. And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation, and in the 7th day there shall be an holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. In verse 17, ye shall observe the feast of the unleavened bread, for in the selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. Now I'm going to drop down to, let's see. I'm going to drop down to verse 23 to get to the point. 23, for the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the 2 doors tie posts, and the Lord will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when ye be come to land which the Lord will give you according as he had promised, that ye shall keep this service. It shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by the service? Then ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the house of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered their houses, and the people bowed the head and worshiped. Drop down to verse 20. And the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, and the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, and the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn in cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, and he and all the servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not a one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, rise up and get ye forth from amongst my people. Both you and the children of Israel, go and serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds as ye have said, and be gone and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptian jewels and silvers and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men beside children. So 600,000 men alongside the women and children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, the flocks and the herds, even very much cattle. And they baked leavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. Okay. So again, 430 years, and so in that Exodus we had to eat, to perform the Passover in haste. It wasn't just like a sit me down and relax type of dinner. No, we had to eat fast and get moving. Okay. And this was just a little bit I had on the Egyptian captivity from Exodus. Let's see here. This is going to be Slovakia. Let me get there real quick here. This is going to read the book of Judith in the Apocrypha. Alright, this is Judah chapter 5. It's going to be verse. This is going to be Judah chapter 5 in the Apocrypha. I'm going to start at verse 8. It says, "For they left the way of their ancestors and worshipped the Most High of heaven, the power whom they knew, so they cast them out of their face, cast them out from the face of their gods. And they fled to Mesopotamia and sojourned there many days. Then their power commanded them to depart from the place where they sojourned and go to the land of Canaan, where they dwelt, and were increased with gold and silver and with very much cattle. But when a famine covered all the land of Canaan, they went down into Egypt and sojourned there, while they were nourished and became there a great multitude, so that no one could number their nation. Therefore the king of Egypt rose up against them and dealt subtly with them and brought them low with laboring in brick and made them slaves." Verse 12, "Then they cried unto their power, and he smote all the land of Egypt with incurable plagues, so the Egyptians cast them out of their sight. And the Most High dried the Red Sea before them, and brought them to Mount Sinai and Kadesh Barn." It says Kadesh Barn is Kadesh Barnea, "and cast forth all that dwelt in the wilderness. So they dwelt in the land of the Amorites, and they destroyed by their strength all them of Esabon, Heshbon, and passing over Jordan till they possessed all the hill country. And they cast forth before them the Canaanite, the Perishite, the Jebusite, and the Shechemite." In the Apocrypha, there's, it's just the translations are weird and a little off, but "and all the Girgashites, and they dwelt in that country many days. And whilst they sinned not before their power, they prospered, because the power that hateth iniquity was with them." Verse 18, "But when they departed from the way which was appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles very sore, and were led captives into a land that was not theirs, and the temple of their God was cast into the ground, and their cities were taken by the enemies." Okay. Verse 19, "But now are they returned to their God, their power, and are come up from the places where they were scattered, and have possessed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and are seated in the hill country, for it was desolate." And this was talking about going back to if you read about, I'll get into this with the Babylonian captivity, where they went back and rebuilt the temple and all that, to possess the land of Jerusalem, because let me see here. Slovakia. Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, verse 19. Now it says here, verse 20. "Now therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error in this people, and they sin against their power, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let's go up, and we shall overcome them." Verse 20, but if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest their Lord defend them, and their God, their power, be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world. Okay, and this was this was in a time. If I go back up, this was during the time of Achior, who was the captain of all of the sons of Ammon, the so-called Japanese, who rose up against Israel. Because he was telling the Holofernes, who was the chief. Let's see. Chief men of Holofernes and all that dwelt. No, this was Slovakia. This was during the. I'm gonna read from here. It says here in Judah chapter 5 verse 1. It says, "Then it was declared to Holofernes, the chief captain of the army of Asher, that the children of Asher, who are the Assyrians, that the children of Israel had prepared for war, and had shut up the passages of the hill country, and had fortified all the tops of the high hills, and had laid impediments in the champion countries." So wherewith he was very angry, and called all the princes of Moab, and the captains of Ammon, and all the governors of the sea coast. So basically this was during the time when Israel was fighting against the Assyrians. Okay, and of course Moab, the so-called Chinese, and Ammon, the so-called Japanese, were joined hand in hand with them. But yes, so, Lord willing, if this was edifying, I know I kind of went off a little bit there, but I just want to drive the point home with the Egyptian captivity, that the Exodus and all this. And of course, let me get one more. It's going to be Genesis 19. Genesis chapter 19, verse 1. It says, "In the third month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai, for they were departed from Rephidim, and were come into the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there camped before the mount. And Moses went up unto the Most High, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel." Verse 4, "Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall become a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel." And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their face all the words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, "All that the Lord hath spoken we will do." And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. Okay, so we said it right there. We said that we will do. Okay, we basically gave our consent to the Most High. And like I said, Lord willing, if this was edifying. And in closing, I'd like to give all honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem, Rachakodash. Double honors and respect to the elders and to the apostles of the great millstone. Peace and blessing to all Akim that are preaching and teaching this word with 100% truth and sincerity. And unto the men, women, and children that are listening and learning. And unto the Ba'ath Dawadah, the elect house of David that is scattered abroad, I give you my utmost and sincere salutations. See you in the next lesson, Lord willing. And like I said, this is the Exodus. When you type in the Egyptian captivity, it takes you right here. So see you on the next lesson, Lord willing. And the next one is going to be the one on the Assyrian captivity. And Lord willing, be edifying as well, to the best of my ability. So, Kwame Asharala, Wa Abba Babal, Shalom,